Give it the free show. Change the category to politics.
Fair enough. It is very politics centered, so
Yeah. Oh shit! I have Crunchyroll drops turned on.
You got what turned on?
Crunchyroll. People want.
Crunchyroll?
Yeah.
Why your Crunchyroll on?
Purchase two. No, I got Twitch drops for Crunchyroll. Purchase 2 subs or gift 2 subs and get 30 days of Crunchyroll for free.
Damn.
All right. I'm gonna share that
True
real
is
quick.
that.
Yeah. I'm not sure this is the content that they want to be sponsoring, but all right.
That's it. I have nothing else to say on it,
Yeah.
As you thought before I head to bed, I want to watch
Oh god.
My Hero Academia Vigilantes for my kind of night show.
No, I'm trying to grab the link, not open it. I need to get caught up in My Hero.
Yeah. I've been enjoying the spinoff. I've been watching that. I've been watching A Brilliant Healer's New Life in the Shadows. I've been loving that one. And Our Last Crusade, or The Rise of a New World, starts up again, finally dubbed next week, I think. I'm hoping. So.
Alright. Talking politics. I guess until May 25th, so I'll probably stream some gameplay this weekend. But yeah, I switched to Linux on the weekend, and I'm actually like loving it.
What's on the 25th?
That when my Crunchyroll partnership ends.
Yeah. I'm glad you're enjoying Linux, dude. I'm glad you were enjoying Linux.
Yeah. By the way, we'll be back from ads in 2 minutes or so we'll go ahead and run our. Like all my software, like OBS, my video editing stuff, like, all like has been running better on Linux. So I my video camera. I think my Windows just either got like bloated or corrupted, and then also because Steam has Proton now, like my games all work. So
Okay.
I originally I dual booted with Windows, so I still have like Windows on the partition because like some games have to use like a kernel level anti cheat like Supervive, which only works on Windows. But now I'm like, I feel like I could probably get by just being entirely on Linux if I just want to like rewrite my entire 2 terabytes of hard drive and make it all Linux.
Fair enough.
Ad is over in One. Okay. Welcome to Free Beer Society for 519. On tonight's show, we'll be talking about why we no longer have consumer rights as individuals. I'm Tim, TK, comic writer and tech nerd guy. Joined as always by Brookvan.
Hi all, it's me.
And this is Free Beer Society, your one-stop news source for free and open source politics. Talk about tech policy and software and things like that. We don't really have much of a pre-show going on, just kind of caught up and stuff, but getting to the preamble ramble. We haven't really talked a little because I've had family stuff going on for a couple weeks. Families in the hospital, so I've been helping taking care of them, and you've also been preparing for a trip. So I figured I'll just start with that. How are you? What's new? How are you doing?
A lot. I'm not looking forward to more of it on air.
That's fair.
But yes, like you said, a lot been going on. I am going on my trip tomorrow for about, I would say, somewhere between 48 to 72 hours.
Okay.
For a family dinner for someone's graduating, so
Yeah.
nice celebration will be held. I'm looking forward to that. Just a bit of unfortunate news going on, unrelated to that, thankfully.
That's good. Yeah.
Right now, that is pretty devastating. That's had me shaken up. So
Okay. Well,
that's a bit hard, but
yeah. Well, I'll ask you about that after the show.
Yeah. We'll talk about that privately, of course.
Yeah.
But besides that, things are okay. Besides that, things are quite good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm about the same, where I've had some interesting family drama going on, but nothing too insane. But I finally decided to practice what I preach and moved over to full free and open source operating systems. So I finally turned my gaming PC into a Linux machine, and
nice.
games work on it. It's great.
I have a little buddy of mine that I knew back from high school days. That would be like so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Guy was like, he was a Linux nut. He loved Linux. And this is 9 years ago.
Right.
8 years ago, 7 years, something like that. Very good number of years ago now. We're still in touch, kind of.
Right.
But mostly he messages me like once a year or 3 times a year. And also, whenever an election happens, he'll just message me at like midnight saying, "What do you think of the election?"
Yes, perfect.
Like, why is it that we always do the politics?
I mean,
she said, "Yes, the U.S. election, yes, but okay."
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's something I talked about with a buddy at work today, is that politics is something that's ever present, so I think it's getting harder and harder to escape talking about it. And
sure.
For
sure.
Yeah. But I mean, even like 9-10 years ago, I was experimenting with Linux, but I never like stuck with it because games didn't really work well on it, but now they do.
Yeah.
So
the infrastructure with the resident agency was not there with Linux back then.
Yeah.
Or even, I would say, even 10 years ago. As much.
Yeah. And now Steam's Proton and a couple other things like Heroic Games Launcher as well have done a lot to make Linux more open accepting for casual gamers who just kind of want to plug and play things rather than have to tweak and fix things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know there's a lot of interesting news stories since we've been gone.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, good. But we're absolutely not going to cover all of them because that'd be nigh impossible.
Yes, yeah. We're planning on doing a double on episode because we missed several weeks just due to work or family or any combination thereof. So,
Yeah.
and I need to be better about updating on Blue Sky about when we're going live and when we're not. So,
I have to be better about getting that YouTube channel with the videos up.
yeah, they should be hopefully this week because the videos are there. They're just currently marked as hidden. I just need to go through and actually put in the rest of the metadata and switch them to live.
Yeah, we'll get better, folks.
Yeah.
Promise.
I'm also thinking about maybe switching over to streaming on YouTube as opposed to Twitch, just to make it easier for VOD conversion.
I don't know. I find it funny. That because it feels like we're going back a little to,
Yeah.
Since we used to do another thing a few years back, and now mostly on YouTube. Now it's not mostly on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with going to YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get today started.
All right.
With our topic of the show. And this comes from Del Cameron and Dhruv Mitra from Wired. The CFPB, that is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau here in America, quietly kills rule to shield Americans from data brokers.
Of course.
Yeah. We'll get into talking about it after I read through the first couple paragraphs here, but it is a not fun story.
I thought it'd be a charmer.
Yeah. We do have a feel-good story at some point in here. I might move that to the end. We'll see. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, has canceled plans to introduce new rules designed to limit the ability of U.S. data brokers to sell sensitive information about Americans, including financial data, credit history, and social security numbers. The CFPB proposed the new rule in early December under former director Rohit Chopra, who said the changes were necessary to combat commercial surveillance practices that threaten our personal safety and undermine America's national security. The agency quietly withdrew the proposal on Tuesday morning, publishing a notice in the Federal Register declaring the rule no longer necessary or appropriate. The CFPB received more than 600 comments from the public this year concerning the proposal titled Protecting Americans from Harmful Data Broker Practices. The rule is crafted to ensure that data brokers obtain Americans' consent before selling or sharing sensitive personal information, including financial data such as income. U.S. credit agencies are already required to abide by such regulations under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, one of the nation's oldest privacy laws. In its notice, the CFPB acting director, Russell Vought, wrote that he was withdrawing the proposal in light of updates to Bureau policies and that it did not align with the agency's current interpretation of the FCRA, or as I like to call it, FCRA, something I deal with in my daily work. Which he added to the CFPB is in the process of revising. The CFPB did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Data brokers, a little bit of context here. Data brokers operate within a multi-billion-dollar industry built on the collection and sale of detailed personal information, often without individuals' knowledge or consent. These companies create extensive profiles on nearly every American, including highly sensitive data such as precise location, history, political affiliations, and religious beliefs. This information is frequently resold for purposes ranging from marketing to law enforcement surveillance. So, the long and short of what I can make of it is that we're already at a point where, as individuals who exist on the internet or that use any sort of technology, well, so much of your personal information is already out in the open. And things like FCRA and stuff like that are designed to make sure that your information is used for the purpose that you gave consent for, the purpose that you wanted to go for, and not spread out from there. And however, data brokers keep on finding ways to circumvent these rules legally or illegally. A lot of these data brokers do illegal practices, and that's why they constantly face fines, or they have in years past, um, that allow them to sell your data to marketing agencies, or to local law enforcement. Um, and in the course of these transactions, your information is getting posted unencrypted on the web, which is why scammers are able to get a hold of your information, including your phone numbers, your employment. So, like, there's a series of texts that people will get from people posing as their employer, asking them to, buy gift cards for a company event or something like that. And they're able to pair your phone number to your name to your employer, because data brokers do not handle your information with any care or privacy because they don't have any incentive to. And the Trump administration that had put in place of the CFPB is putting a stop on new rules that would force them to handle your information with more privacy. And your information, of course, can then spread from there, get paired with more stuff, and leak onto the dark web, which is how you end up getting hackers and phishing attempts and all other stuff. So it's my immediate takeaway on this is that this only ever serves to benefit shady businesses to keep them from having to spend money on improving their security. It actively damages consumer security, as well as it does damage national security, because our members of government also have to conduct business on the internet, even if it's as simple as ordering stuff off Amazon. So
No. Consumers are the peons. They're not the same league as other people.
right.
Exactly. So they don't matter. And by some magic, the others, when they use the fears, it won't affect them. Somehow.
Right.
It makes no logical sense, but no, it is just ridiculous. This is disarms everyone who uses really anything.
Yeah. I mean,
there's not really a pro here.
No, that's the thing. Is like I don't know how they are gonna potentially try to spin this, but the proposed legislation was literally encouraging data brokers to increase their security, but and to actually have to ask individuals if their information can be transmitted, which I don't think anyone in their right set of mind would say, yes, please transmit my data unencrypted over the internet. Because, I mean, so much of our stuff now, if you're paying, you buy everything off Amazon or any number of better, smaller retailers, if you want to get books, I'm trying to remember the name of the bookstore I go to, but it's just a bookstore that's online. CD Baby's great for music, things like that. But any number, yeah.
Oh.
But still, all information ends up going through, because if you're using Chrome, they're reselling information. If you log into Facebook and you don't have a plugin installed on your browser to limit Facebook's access to pull information, Facebook has set up cookies that will pull information from other websites you visit.
Of course. Well, that explains a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So if you're using Facebook, I'd recommend getting a software called Gated, which will stop Facebook from being able to track your activity on other websites.
What about your phone?
That's the problem, is that a lot of stuff also on phone, because if you're using Apple or Android, which you probably are, because trying to find a viable third-party option right now is not great. The information on there is also being resold. So I tried to you try to do the best you can to encrypt that using VPNs and private browsing, but still, so much of that you can only control so much.
Fair.
Yeah.
I apologize if you're talking about Trump, by the way.
That's fine. I mean, you know, at least the dog isn't going to sell our data.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. I do something. But yeah.
Okay. And yeah, kind of in the video here listed, they would talk about in a different article, but like I was saying here, this also gets tied into local law enforcement, and now with our government here cracking down on legal protests, and your face being online, they can use facial recognition to track you from a protest to your social media profile, to your home, to your family, and you know, you could get arrested for practicing your right to free speech. Because your information has been resold without your consent. So yeah, between this, some other articles we'll get into tonight, and just like the general sway of the last couple months, it's really felt like, as an individual who exists on the internet, it's becoming increasingly hard to actually just take care of yourself or maintain any semblance of private identity, because the administration keeps on ruling in favor of bigger businesses having more control over your life.
Yeah. It really does remind me of Cyberpunk.
Yeah, like 100%. It's like we're heading towards the cyberpunk dystopia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, FCC Chair Brendan Carr is letting ISPs merge as long as they end DI programs.
Yes.
Huh.
This comes from John Brodkin at Ars Technica.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they go into the acronyms here, but just for the sake of consistency, FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. They oversee information as it gets broadcast, so radio, television, and internet content. Internet business gets handled by the FTC, but internet content gets handled by the FCC. So ISPs fall under their jurisdiction as well as FTC. Right. Federal Trade Commission. ISPs, internet service providers, and DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Essentially, programs that are designed to make companies less racist. So I'll get reading that. It's shaping up to be a big year for telecom mergers, and it appeals to the Federal Communications Commission is eager to approve the deals as long as companies involved drop any DEI policies criticized by FCC Chairman Brendan Carr. Verizon just got a big merger approved, and cable giant Charter is seeking permission to buy Cox. The FCC on Friday announced approval of Verizon's purchase on Frontier, one day after Verizon committed to end DEI policies in a filing with the Commission. Carr previously sent letters to Verizon and other companies alleging that the diversity policies are invidious forms of discrimination that violate federal law and threaten to block mergers pursued by firms that enforce such policies. Verizon has now agreed to end its DEI policies as specified in a new FCC filing, Carr wrote in a post on Twitter. These changes are effective immediately, a good step forward for equal opportunity, non-discrimination, and the public interest. Verizon's commitment to end DEI policies is mentioned in the FCC press release announcing approval of the merger and the FCC order granting that approval. The order issued by FCC staff said, "We recognize Verizon's commitment to equal opportunity employment and non-discrimination as strengthening its investment and service quality efforts. Verizon states it is modifying its practices, including its leadership, structure, training, corporate sponsorships, supplier selection, hiring, career development sources, and public and internal messaging, and has also committed to applying these changes to Frontier following the close of the proposed transaction. We accept Verizon's commitment to modify its practices as firm and definite, and expect that these changes will prevent DEI discrimination in the post-transaction company, as consistent with the law and the public interest." Verizon announced its $20 billion deal for Frontier in September 2024, in the final months of the Biden administration, and last week's letter agreeing to end DEI practices. Verizon General Counsel Vanda Venkatesh wrote, "Recognize the regulatory and policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion has changed. At the Supreme Court, the President's executive orders and federal mandates require changes in the way companies approach DEI issues moving forward." Verizon's letter said that because of the changing landscape, the firm has been evaluating its DEI-related programs, HR processes, supplier programs, training programs, and materials and other initiatives. Among other changes, Verizon said it will no longer hire a team or any individual roles focused on DEI, and will reassign DEI-focused employees to HR talent objectives. Verizon recognizes that some DEI policies and practices can be associated with discrimination. T-Mobile sent a similar letter to Carr on March 27th, saying it's fully committed to identifying and rooting out any policies and practices that enable such discrimination, whether in fulfillment of DEI or any other purpose, and is thus conducting a comprehensive review of its DEI policies, programs, and activities. One day later, the FCC approved a T-Mobile joint venture to acquire fiber provider Lumos. And then we have some commentary and back and forth there. Essentially, the Free Press accurately criticizing Verizon and labeling it all as essentially just them politicking to try and get more favor of the current administration. So to summarize, internet providers are being allowed to buy up smaller companies and essentially get to the point of forming trust again. Which, I mean, we've already had internet companies be a trust in the traditional sense in that they are collaborating with each other to either buy up smaller competition and then set prices at a way that are prohibitive to actual competition, which is why in a lot of cities in America you only have two choices and the pricing is exactly the same. They're not actually working to compete. They don't care if you go with one or the other. They just want to make sure that you're paying the same price, which is usually inflated more so than the actual value of the service you're getting. And the current administration has put this individual in charge of the FCC and is requiring them to essentially end anti-racist, anti-homophobic, whatever you want action. Essentially, they're wanting them to end practices that prevent them from avoiding hiring someone because they are black, gay, Jewish, or whatever. So they're encouraged to let's say they're encouraged to be racist, but essentially they're encouraged to allow racism and anti-Semitism flourish in their companies, and are incentivized with getting a bigger market share, allowing them to again form these large trusts that can set predatory pricing. Thankfully, I use a smaller independent NERC provider, which has its issues. Sometimes I play Final Fantasy XIV and it doesn't always work well with the servers, but the pricing is actually fair. We have 100 some odd megs, or I think actually 500. And I can't remember our speed. It might be a gig. I think it might be a gig. But we pay less than $100 for it because it's set to the actual value of the service rather than the inflated cost that these larger companies are setting and then forcing you to pick which person you're paying $150 to. They don't care as long as they're paying someone $150. Yeah. Which I'm interested in how this compares to how internet works in Canada.
I don't know it well enough. I never
That's fair.
looked too deeply into it, to be frank. And yeah, so I think it's cheaper, but
I think also because I believe internet in Canada is partially subsidized because it's treated as a public necessity, which in my mind, makes sense because it's impossible to pay your bills now if you don't have internet. All your bills are done via the internet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. I think this will also be interesting because I imagine that other countries that are still holding on to their sanity will probably imagine, especially also with the way that we've been going back and forth with Canada and a few others, England and Australia might then respond by saying that they need to have these policies back in place in order to conduct business over there. So you're going to get to a weird point where EU policy might override American policy or vice versa because of the way that we end up. The market share in the EU is just generally bigger, and so when EU passes regulations on Facebook or whatever, it ends up causing them to change the way they do business over here.
could be possible. Like, look, a lot of countries are also rejecting the American way,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. So I don't think what you said is an impossibility
Yeah.
by any means, Yeah, like,
Yeah. I think also then what becomes like also an attack on issue of this is going to be that because we're again incentivizing these companies with allowing them to grow via acquisition and again to reform these trusts that the last administration spent a long time trying to either dismantle or slow down. We're going to continue escalating to a point where we're going to have robber baron style pricing, which then will need to go through a whole bunch of antitrust legislation. The same thing we did to steel and to oil, and we have to do to oil again. But Trump loves his oil trust, so I doubt we'll actually get any.
He does love his oil.
Yeah, I doubt we're going to get any actual action to reduce the cost of oil because he's getting paid by companies to let them to float costs. So, yeah. It's going to be one of those things where I feel like we're going to need to have a long period of actual substantive antitrust legislation that resets how the internet is provided in America because we're reaching a point of unsustainability where costs are going to get prohibitive and you don't have any options. You just have one company that owns all the providers in the area.
Yeah, but it's still not cheap. Like does, say it here, like it's not cheap.
Right.
Still,
Yeah.
Like,
I think Canada's a little bit better, but I think it still deals with the same issue in that you have Charter and Comcast, and everything else is owned by one of the two. Unless you get like some smaller municipal one, like what I managed to get over here. I think eventually you'll have to get to a point where they break all these companies up into a bunch of smaller companies and force them to compete again.
fair.
This one is a follow-on for an ongoing story.
How did it unlock up Apple? But and it got tapped in 20 minutes.
Yep. So this is going to be following on our favorite Secretary of Defense, who does not know his way around secure messaging.
Why did that not surprise me? Did it RFK say, I do not understand medicine?
Yes, yeah. RFK doesn't understand medicine, and Mike Waltz doesn't understand national security. So here we go.
That's what you want to hear.
Yep.
Really, those departments.
No. I broke my wire. 1 second. I hate this. This is bad. If you're a news source, don't do paywalls. There you go. There you go. Delete. There you go. Yep, there you go. Is Engadget. So this comes from Lawrence Bonk at Engadget. Telemessage, a signal clone the Trump administration uses, has been hacked. A hacker has exploited a vulnerability in telemessage to breach this service and steal data, according to reporting by 404 Media. Telemessage is an Israeli company that provides modded versions of encrypted messaging apps like Signal and Telegram. I would also say that I don't know if we'll get into it on this one, but it's also just not actually encrypted because the data gets copied and stored on their servers. So it kind of beats the entire point of end-to-end encryption because it's not actually end-to-end encrypted. It gets unencrypted halfway through and stored on remote data. As revealed last week... Oh, go ahead.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
I'm making a comment. Go ahead.
It was revealed last week that former U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz used Telemessage's modified version of Signal to archive messages. Today's report indicated the presence of other high-ranking government officials in archived chats on the app, including Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, and Vice President J.D. Vance. The unnamed hacker was able to access archived chats, but doesn't look like they got into any of Walt's conversations. The hack does, however, prove that the app's message archiving service is not end-to-end encrypted. There you go. The hacker also accessed contact information of government officials, login credentials for telemessage, and data pertaining to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. Some businesses who use the service, like Coinbase and Scotiabank, were also hacked. 404 Media spoke to the anonymous hacker, who said the whole thing only took about 15 to 20 minutes and that it wasn't much effort at all. Telemessage's parent company, Smarsh, has yet to comment on the matter. All this happened after Waltz accidentally revealed he used telemessage during a cabinet meeting last week. This led people to question what kind of information was being shared on the app and how it was being secured. Now we know it wasn't secured all that well. Telemessage gave a statement to Reuters saying that it was investigating a potential security incident and suspending its services out of an abundance of caution. Of course, it's only been a few weeks since Signalgate, in which it was revealed that top U.S. officials were using the messaging app Signal to discuss active combat operations. Prior to the Trump administration, government officials typically avoided consumer-grade messaging apps to hash out military plans. Instead, they used sensitive, compartmented information facilities, also known as SCIFs, and in-house encrypted communication channels. Yes, so more national security information out in the open.
You know what? Who needs spies anymore?
I mean, we could get like super conspiracy and say that the entire administration are spies from Russia, and that this is just they don't care about how open they're revealing information anymore. But
if that was the case, then that is amazing.
Yeah,
that is not the case. But just like, oh boy,
yeah,
it'd be nice to have people in charge of departments that actually knew a thing about the department.
Yeah.
Or the subject. Or have knowledge of anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's again like as a country, like we have used Signal like in certain things, and Signal's actually like very well handled if you don't add random people to the conversation, because it is actually end-to-end encrypted. It's one of like the most secure messaging services. However, as a government, the United States does have some of the most top-end encrypted communications channels and devices that, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just people don't want to give up their phone or use their work phone when they're brought into the administration. But I don't. It's like this really weird switch to where now we're just essentially sending top secret information over text, and then it's 3 times now that this has become a thing.
Here to real questions, ready?
Yeah.
When will the fourth time happen?
Fairly soon, if like the history's any indicator.
Like the fourth time will happen. Like this is ridiculous. This should not be happening.
Yeah.
This is a danger to national security, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, 100% it is because we're dealing with like individuals that could be bribed, extorted, or information that could potentially lead to the deaths of troops because it could involve positions or strike plans or anything like that. I mean, the bombing in Yemen, if that got intercepted early by someone who like working with the Houthis, like they could have had anti-air defenses in place for the airstrikes.
Of course.
Yeah, and
Well,
the fact that it isn't just one person too. Like the fact that it has always been multiple people on these services and people like in the highest like echelons too, the vice president.
the vice president should not have this information through a buddy test chat.
Right.
Like this. And I tried. If everything was secure, you knew every secure and ways we would not be able to know this stuff. Sorry guys, but the fact that we know this, we should not be able to know this.
No. Yeah.
That is the point.
Like back in the day, conspiracy theories were like, oh, they like have secret, like we'd have conspiracy theories about like the secret messages that, like the government's in back and forth, like they know what's in Area 51 because they're texting about it or whatever. But like now, like literally, like we don't even need to have conspiracy theories about what sort of secrets are being messaged back and forth because it's literally just out in the open for anyone to like log in and grab in 20 minutes.
Look, if an alien is there, eventually we just at this point have, they step a probe up my asshole.
Yeah.
Here's the photo.
Yeah.
Like, did it allow 5? Like,
yeah.
This is stuff no you should not know. And kind of what scares me more is the amount of people not freaking out.
Right. Yeah.
Not that you could freak out, but like,
I think
the amount of people. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I think there's some people who are so like, I think it might be some sunken cost fallacy, and then also some people who are just into the cult of personality of Trump that his administration can do no wrong. That they're like, oh, actually, this is perfectly normal and fine. This happens all the time, and just try to rationalize it away or excuse it because they don't want to admit that they made a mistake in voting or following this guy.
Did this happen all the time in the past? I don't recall this happening all the time in the past.
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure this is all fairly new developments.
Like, oh no, you don't have some national security problems. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Right side.
I
get a Democrats will win this election.
Hopefully.
Because I find it very hard to believe that people will be okay with this for 4 years.
Honestly, I don't even know if people will really care about this because they're more concerned about the cost of eggs, and admittedly, people are feeling the cost of tariffs. Finally,
even lots of aids that have not went down.
Yeah, exactly. They went up by 76% in some areas. You have people like on TikTok now and like Instagram and whatever talking about like, oh, I didn't vote for this now, like the costs are too high. And it's like, well, okay, great, good that you're aware that the Republicans are not the economic choice, no matter what you think. But also, I don't understand why that's the pressing issue and not, the active racism and just general ineptitude.
But the conservates have reduced. I have someone argue that to me the other day.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I've also had people like that. We're like, well, no.
they reduced by the number going up.
Yeah.
It's mind games. By the number going up, it's actually going down.
Right.
I don't understand this mindset. I really don't.
It's
I don't know how you defend this administration at this point.
yeah. I don't understand.
Like a lot of America, I don't. Americans I know overseas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know about the military, but the military is a special breed. Not bashing the military here or service members, but Americans not in the military. Overseas, I think a lot that I know are embarrassed by the country,
Yeah.
embarrassed by these policies, and ashamed for what the country's doing. And a lot of the world have pulled away from the U.S. because of this.
Yeah.
So, like, major grave, gotta lie in it.
100%. It's yeah. It. Yeah. It sucks for like everyone who lives here who is sane and just cringing or being actively repulsed by what's happening in the government and trying to figure out like what the hell do we do, like, because we can't all leave America because then America becomes terrible. But also I literally know that the rest of the world cannot handle that rapid of an outflux, and also a lot of people that isn't an economic reality. They don't have the ability to afford to immigrate somewhere else.
Of course.
So
Another thing that maybe a different point to make here.
Mhm.
Other countries would literally teach them. There'd be 10.
I mean,
Other countries were not, I think, want so many American immigrants coming in from
yeah,
all over. They would turn them away, and they have every right to.
right,
It's not their responsibility to take care of Americans that want to leave.
yeah,
Technically,
right.
Like if you're in danger, obviously, I don't really want to use the term refugee here because I'm not sure that's fully accurate.
But even Canada now has set up a refugee program for LGBTQIA Americans, and Americans and minorities are being targeted. Yeah,
that is good. They also have set up a crisis hotline.
Yeah.
For people in that community, that any American in that community is welcome to call them if they feel they need to.
Yeah.
If they're suicidal or if they're, etc. Like, and that is beautiful. That should be done. But does that right now should not, at least where the U.S. is right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the right answer is to say, all right, half the country for a country or something, right? Just leave. Just leave and come over there. Come over here. No. I was in a country close too far gone. I understand. I'm like, maybe something can change. Maybe something can happen.
I mean, part of the responsible thing to do is to kind of, if you have the ability to like safely stay and like take political action to do so, to try and reverse changes. But unfortunately, the right's response to a lot of people is like, well, if you don't like it, you can leave, and then we get into the issue of, well, no country in the world has the capability of taking in that many people at once, nor do they have like the incentive to. And for most people, like, that's not an economic feasibility. Like, they can't afford rent. How they're going to afford like a plane ticket, immigration papers, and
a passport?
Yeah.
Many Americans do not have a passport.
Mm-hmm.
But the other hard thing here, right, is that, it's very obvious some drastic change has to happen. Yeah. This is not the right way to go. but something has to happen.
Yeah.
Like, ideally, what you need is a third party to go into the U.S. and shake it up. So the Democrats won't change.
Hmm.
There's no confidence in that. And well, the Republicans have been changing a bit, but not for the better.
No. But my honest thought is that with everything going on, at some point we either accidentally piss off NATO to the point of invoking, was it Article 4, Article 6 on ourselves, or something happens where we actually, or piss it off our own military to the point where we actually end up going through and either a military junta gets established or NATO just picks out our government and says, okay, we're going to put in a coalition government for now until you guys get it figured out because you just invaded Greenland and that's a no-no.
What is that? What is that? That's out of war.
Yeah. I mean, if we were to actually invade Greenland, then yeah, then the rest of NATO would be obliged to take retaliatory action against us.
On a paper, yes, but will that really happen though?
I think we get to a point where so much of the military would actively stand down at that point that they just kind of like wave the guys here, like, all right, this way in.
I would hope so. But I'm not that confident about that idea. I would hope so, though. I would hope so.
Yeah. But yeah, my other thought would be he issues such an unconstitutional order dealing with domestic unrest or whatever that the military just takes that moment to invoke their ability to remove the executive position from their office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's boy.
Yeah. But I mean, the defense advisors and the head of the defense agencies currently are showing that they're just great at doing their jobs, and I'm sure that is sitting well with every member of the armed service. Because I imagine if you're someone who was in the armed service and you're seeing this while you're actively on duty, you're just gritting your teeth.
I don't know. I know a lot of people that I think still support them.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
yeah. Veterans military.
Yeah. I think the last thing is actually only about 40%. So opinion has kind of swayed greatly and is continuing to deteriorate, which hopefully that is a trend that continues.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, the next
one. This is from News Minimalist. And they're just sharing a Wired article because Wired is a garbage company and hides stuff behind the paywall. Lawyer says computer ban disadvantage activist in deportation case. Anti-war activist Muhammad Khalil's lawyer was barred from using a computer during a key hearing, which she argues gave the government an unfair advantage in his deportation case. This is seen by experts as an example of the inequities in immigration court. The attorney, Nora Ahmed, was prevented from accessing crucial evidence while government lawyers had laptop access. Judge Jamie Comins ruled Kali eligible for deportation despite Ahmed's prior approval for computer use. Kali, a U.S. green card holder, protested the war in Gaza and is a target of the Trump administration. The government has not accused him of any crime, but he was detained without a warrant and is now subject to a system with limited legal representation. So, getting into this again, we're getting to the point where now, as a U.S. citizen, your protections and rights are, even as a protected U.S. Resident, which green card holders are protected U.S. residents, you have your protections and rights are being stripped away because green card holders have universal human rights as protected by the Hague and all that. However, in breaking several of those, having trial without accusation of crime, without legal precedent, and then without a peer defense. So, having your lawyer not be able to use a laptop, again, getting to a point where internet access is, at this point, needing to become more of a necessity or right, because that was how his attorney would be able to pull up any sort of evidence or any sort of notes or communications you had on the proceedings. Um, Essentially, just made the administration prevent a real defense from being able to be presented. So, um, a student who peacefully protested is now being potentially removed from the country without a proper legal defense. This is probably one of the. I mean, probably we get into the War of God stuff. Like, this is just probably like one of the scarier stories, especially if you have family who are residents of America, but like even if they're legal residents, if they're not, I mean, even full citizens are being deported now, which is great. But it's kind of a point where I don't want to say it other than this individual essentially had all their rights stripped away, was given a kangaroo court hearing, and is now having their life drastically changed because they voiced an opinion that was unpopular.
Freedom of speech in America, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say, like, if you can say anything about it, but like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but for me, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where it almost leaves you like a little speechless about, like, well,
I think that's a good term, speechless.
yeah,
Like, we're on trying not to debatably.
yeah,
Yeah, that's speechless. This is wrong.
yeah,
I would expect to be allowed to use a computer. Now, all right, if this is normal, I'm not a lawyer, obviously.
right,
You know, I must study law. Like, I'm not used to hearings, so.
yeah.
But I believe a computer is allowed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're supposed to be allowed to have, because it sounds like she was approved for having computer use to have her notes and evidence on hand, but was then denied it on the actual date of the hearing. Um,
Yeah, so yeah, approval
yeah,
for computer use. So yeah, like, it kind of thing,
yeah,
the whole right to due process is the argument of not that this is exactly that debatably is, but
yeah,
I have a point here. Your argument of I hear sometimes now, which I can't believe of. Well, they're not an American citizen, so they don't have a right to due process.
right,
No, they are. The Constitution says within America, you have a right to due process.
yeah,
It does not mean citizen, it means within the borders. If you're standing on Wyoming soil, guess what? You're in America.
yeah,
So look, obviously, if someone is at a protest and yelling things that clearly feels like, okay, that person's a threat to the public, right?
sure,
That is a different situation out there. To point out to you, not that's I don't really want to go to that conversation really. You're like, but that I feel there's more of an argument there, Maybe, you know. I want to say what you said, what you think is would be valid in that type of threat, but we all have an imagination. So use your imagination. I bet we can all think of some horrible stuff. Sadly, that someone could say that when they're asking is threatening violence onto the local public.
yeah.
Obviously, you know. But if that's not happening, right? Which sounds like this is not what happened here.
No, this
Then
is a student protest who was I believe, arrested on campus.
Then
Yeah.
now I think some people disagree with me. Maybe some Americans would disagree with me. But I think if you are an American, surely you have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So you should not be. The Constitution should prevent you from being arrested for this. You know.
Yeah.
And if people get the freedom of speech say wrong a lot of time, to be fair, like it's very particular in certain cases.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't go up to a black guy and like directly say a hateful thing to him,
Right. It's freedom of speech,
right?
not a hate speech. Yeah.
Like I'm not going to say that on air, but you again use your imagination, people. But I can't go up and say blah 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 bleep. You bleep bleep bleep.
Mm-hmm.
I see that to their face, pointing a finger at them, like that. That is a crime. That is not allowed.
Yeah.
You cannot directly say hate speech to people.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech does not protect that.
No.
But if it's more of a, you know, I remember I was listening to a bounty hunter a while ago talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he used an example of like, you can't do that. But if you're like, be part of the KKK, dress in ropes, do the funny dances, burn a cross, that disgusting and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they technically, I think they use that example. I could be wrong. They have a right to kind of do that. Or a better example I used was like a Nazi waving a Nazi flag marching around the square, right?
Right.
You can hate what the heck they're doing. You could be disgusted by it, and you should be, obviously. But they have a right to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's atrocious action, and to be more, I think not really debatably atrocious people to a extent, obviously. Nazis are bad. No shit. But if it's in the ether, not directed to anyone specifically, you should not be allowed to be, arrested for it.
Right.
And there's not even seeing that this human being, this person, said anything or did anything to that level, or say anything to that level of this awfulness. But especially if it's not directed at a specific person
Yeah.
or had evidence of doing actual violence or hate crime to specific people, then no, you can't charge for you got charged. So I'm not saying you have to leave. Like what?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, it's almost seems like now it almost has like sets a precedent where because they were denied due process, if you were to or if you for anything you did upset the administration, you could also potentially be denied that same due process if they say like, well, it's a deportation case. It doesn't matter. It's
I hear an argument also of like, okay, you are coming to study. You're not supposed to be doing these type of protests. You're supposed to, you know, you're supposed to be focusing on, before the campus or school, etc. Right?
yeah.
And partly, yes, I don't disagree with that point necessarily. But again, it's the spirit of the idea, really.
Yeah. I mean, us
Yeah.
kind of
If
think like
should you believe in it, then it should apply to anyone within the American borders.
yeah. I mean, this kind of also like the thing about like we wouldn't have gotten involved in World War II necessarily if it weren't for people who were displaced from uh, European or Jewish communities that spent time protesting in America leading into World War II as well. And those people were at that time the equivalent of green card holders. That the system was in place. They were still residents, but they weren't citizens. But they still took time to voice their opinion, and that was the reason that we joined into World War II. So that same idea of like
I thought you mostly joined to World War II because of,
So Pearl Harbor was one thing,
Yeah.
but Pearl Harbor sent us into Asia, but we didn't start sending weapons and lend leasing into Britain and France
Yeah.
until we had public support for it. Because before then, we were totally isolationist and weren't even involved economically.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for drawing attention, people, by the way.
It's a podcast. That's what we're here for.
Fair enough. Hope I made some good points.
Oh, that was good.
Anyway.
Pull from this too. Yeah. Will Elon Musk really leave Doge? Or no, this is from last month. Where's that's a weird. Okay. Elon Musk's Doge is stepping back. What that means for federal services?
It feels like a positive story.
Yeah. There you go. Elon Musk is stepping back from his high-profile role in the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, raising new questions about the future of federal cost-cutting efforts. President Trump created Doge in 2023 to slash and streamline public services.
Wait, what?
What? That's incorrect.
No.
This is probably some AI drivel. That's okay. Again, Wired. Why you put stuff behind a paywall? Oh, we'll go back to. What is this one? It's saying the same thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. Elon Musk says he's coming back from his from Chris Goodwin, Brittany Griffins, and Anna Etchick, an insider. Elon Musk is back from the White House in May. After spending 3 months trying to radically reshape the government and its workforce, Musk on Tuesday said he'd be stepping back. This is from like months ago, so I'm trying to find the updated one on this because I actually have what's happening now and the economic report of it. See if this has the breakdown down. This one may be a skip until next time because we haven't got the update on the.
Let's do that. Maybe we only have half an hour left for the most part.
Yeah.
It's our time frame, give or take. We can move on then.
Okay. Let's go to.
Really try the FBI warn.
Yeah. FBI importance of ongoing scam that uses deepfake audio to impersonate government officials. From Dan Gooden at Ars Technica. This is going to be a quick one. The FBI is warning people to be vigilant of an ongoing malicious messaging campaign that uses AI-generated voice audio to impersonate government officials and attempt to trick recipients into clicking on links that can infect their computers. Since April 2025, malicious actors have impersonated senior U.S. officials to target individuals, many of whom are current or former senior U.S. federal or state government officials and their contacts. Thursday's advisory from the Bureau's Internet Crime Complaint Center said, if you receive a message claiming to be from a senior U.S. official, do not assume it's authentic. The campaign's creators are the AI-generated voice messages, better known as deepfakes, along with text messages, in an effort to establish rapport before gaining access to personal accounts. FBI officials say deepfakes use AI to make voice and speaking characteristics of a specific individual. These differences between authentic and simulated speakers are often indistinguishable without trained analysis. Deepfake videos work similarly. One way to gain access to targets' devices is for the attacker to ask if the conversation can be continued on a separate messaging platform, and then successfully convince the target to click on a malicious link under the guise that it will enable the alternate platform. The advisory provided no additional details about the campaign. So I've actually got one of these calls and texts claiming to be the what like the House representative for my district.
Oh,
Yeah. Essentially, it says like, "Hey, this is Democrat representatives, blah blah. I'm trying to rally support in your area, and I was hoping that I could like reach out to you and grab your opinions and stuff." So it seems like the normal like generic text or form you would get from their office that would be um, uh, I also got one where it's saying like I'm doing a town hall right now. I got a voicemail that's saying I'm doing a town hall right now. I was calling my constituents and wanted to grab your opinion on something. Um, so it's stuff that like actually seems like generic like text you would get from if you're a member of a political party where it asks you to fill out a survey or whatever. I'll note now that they have stopped sending links because of stuff like this. So if you get an actual text, they'll say like I'm having a town hall in your area on this in this location, this date. Hope to see you there, and they won't give you a link. It'll just end there. Else, it's just giving you the date and time for a town hall, or it'll instead of giving you a link, it'll tell you to go to
come up with it.
say like please visit my website. And they won't link anything. They'll just ask you to please visit the website and complete a survey. But the ones that actually contain a link are usually going to try and be scam, and so I have not clicked on any of those or answered.
Good idea.
Or answered that voicemail, but it is like it is scary because it's a person that I have heard speak in person, and it sounded just like them. They used some background noise to kind of hide artifacting that happens in an AI voice. The little bits that make it sound not real or poppy.
Right.
But yeah, this is something to be aware of now that we're now like at a point where the phones are just no longer safe methods of communication. Definitely if you're a member of the defense department, but
This is what we are learning. We need carrier pigeons back.
Something. I would essentially don't trust anything unless you have talked to someone in person. They never respond to unsolicited texts or calls, just in general now. And
well, that's same here. I almost never, ever answer any call or test that I don't recognize anymore.
Yeah,
it makes it really actually hard because I'm waiting on something from someone I don't know the number. It kind of just be a strange.
I hate that. Yeah,
because I need something I'm doing. So I hope I don't deny them.
Right.
Because I thought they were a scammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like you almost need like start like setting up verbal passwords for when you're calling your friends.
All right.
Something, but yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
Always and if you have clicked on any weird links or anything like that, and you even if you haven't seen the download, take your phone in and get it souped by a computer store, just in case. Yeah, it's
not a bad call.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, that's just bad. But there's nothing really to say about it. It's a little scary how much it's getting towards people, but it's AI. It will get better. It will.
It learns.
That's all it is,
Yeah.
Terminator. Not Terminator. That's silly, but still, it will improve. It will get better. The genie's out of the bottle, out of the lamp. That door's boss been opened. You can't close it now.
No.
It will just keep getting better, and either it'll go really bad or it'll go eventually well.
Right.
Time will tell, we're the infancy of AI. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're at a point where
things can change.
Yeah, it's the world we live with now, and we're gonna find some way to cope with it. In more ways than one.
Oh yeah. Let's watch the next one.
Okay. From Ashley Munger at Ars Technica, Meta argues enshittification isn't real and bid to toss FTC monopoly case.
And what the heck is that?
So enshittification, we'll get into here.
That's a great word.
Is the The company essentially increasing, making choices to increase revenue while degrading user experience.
That feels like a good word for that, son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meta thinks there's no reason to carry on with its defense after the Federal Trade Commission closed its monopoly case. The company has moved to end of trial early by claiming that the FTC utterly failed to prove its case. The FTC has no proof that Meta has monopoly power, Meta's motion for judgment filed Thursday said, and therefore the court should rule in favor of Meta. According to Meta, the FTC failed to show evidence that the overall quality of Meta's apps has declined or that the company shows too many ads to users. Meta says that's fatal to the FTC's case. The company wielded monopoly power to pursue more ad revenue while degrading user experience over time, an internet trend known as enshittification. And on top of allegedly showing no evidence of ad load, privacy, integrity, and features degradation on Meta apps, Meta argued there's no precedent for an antitrust claim rooted in this alleged harm. Meta knows of no case finding monopoly power based solely on claimed degradation in product quality, and the FTC has cited none, Meta argued. Meta has maintained throughout the trial that its users actually like seeing ads. In the company's recent motion, Meta argued that the FTC provided no insights into what the right number of ads should be, let alone provided proof that Meta showed more ads than it would be in a competitive market where users could easily switch services if ad load became overwhelming. Further, Meta. Oh, go ahead.
That you like seeing ads. That argument. That's funny.
Right. When I first read this, that's what caught my eye. I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Further, Meta argued that the FTC did not show evidence that users sharing friends and family content were shown more ads. Meta noted that it does not profit by showing more ads to users who do not click on them, so it only shows more ads to users who click on ads. Meta has also insisted there's nothing but speculation showing that Instagram or WhatsApp would have been better off or grown into rivals had Meta not acquired them. The company claimed that that without Meta's resources, Instagram may have died off. Meta noted that Instagram co-founder Kevin Systrom testified that his app was pretty broken and duct taped together, making it vulnerable to spam before Meta bought it. Rather than objectification, what Meta did to Instagram could be considered a consumer welfare bonanza. Meta argued while dismissing a smoking gun emails from Mark Zuckerberg discussing buying Instagram to bury it as legally irrelevant. Listing these as a few data emails, Meta argued that efforts to litigate Mr. Zuckerberg's state of mind before the acquisition in 2012 are pointless. System breaks down is that in Zuckerberg's emails, he 100% said that Instagram would become a rival and that they needed to buy it while it was still small. But also, I find this entire defense from them to be kind of disingenuous, not just in the fact that they're trying to say that Zuckerberg saying that he's trying to form a trust. It was not Zuckerberg saying he's trying to form a trust, but also that saying that they should dismiss the case because there's no precedent for it. Well, the tech space is so new and still burgeoning that we need to set precedents. So this would be a landmark case, one way or the other. And trying to say that it's not going to be a landmark case even if they win is disingenuous. But also, studies show that people hate ads. In general, you get a minority of consumers that click on ads, but having worked in marketing, 1% click through is golden, and so that's 1 out of 100. That means that 99% of people do not want to see your ad. Yeah. So it's I definitely have moved off of Facebook as much as possible. I still use Instagram because trying to find a good alternative for that is still not present. But I mean, Blue Sky is my primary social media and Mastodon because of the way that they're currently operating in a way that is consumer driven, not ad revenue driven. It's the complete opposite of enshittification, but even just how slow Facebook feels now. because of how much RAM it consumes to process all the fucking video ads you get fed. It feels like you can feel when shitification set in. I don't know if you have any thoughts on
Not really, not this one.
using Meta apps yourself. I don't know how you've been finding the Instagram and Facebook experience over the last couple of years, how that's trended.
Eh, I don't really use them much anymore. Like,
Yeah.
like Instagram, I'll look at other people's stuff. I don't ever put my own stuff up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I possibly could have started a new one for a community server that I started running ish. But Facebook, I really like. I will use Facebook for private messages for people that are far away that I just don't have the number for anymore, right? But besides that, I never post up. I really like other people's stuff they post up. It's really just for DMs. It's like an alternate to WhatsApp for me
Yeah.
now. Just because I don't have everyone's cell phone number.
Yeah.
Because they may have moved or whatever, right? They changed phones or something.
100%. Yeah.
So Facebook is the easy way since we both, myself, and our fortunate still have it. We still message each other there without any problems. So
Yeah.
besides that, I don't even look at the deep layers of Facebook or Instagram or like in my mind, Facebook is more or less abandoned at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel I'm honest enough to really judge that. But I do feel that to an extent. Like I don't see people talk about it. I don't see people really use it as much, especially younger generations, for sure. And even Instagram, kind of, to an extent.
Yeah, I feel like Instagram is, unless you're like working in some form of artistic medium, it almost never gets used. Like it's only for people sharing thirst traps, paintings, or visual art, or to promote other social medias. Like I use Instagram to promote my Twitch.
Well, you know what? Here's something interesting, right? It's funny we're talking about this because the word reason I'm a little maybe sporadic right now is someone was mentioning name, right? I met him through the Star Citizen game community literally multiple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And really nice guy. I remember like I don't want to name him on the air.
Sure.
Either this guy or someone else about to mention him. But the guy you connected me with years ago, right? Someone else
yeah.
about you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And like he helped me build the rig, but we also just hit it off with chatting, talking philosophy. We had a great time, right?
Yeah, he's actually he's been on stream before, but I think people just know him by his streamer tag, which is just non-surplused.
Yeah, I watched the name. Yeah. But yeah, non-surplus. He's an amazing dude. I also have to check on him. Have you talked to him recently?
Last time he was in state, yes. Actually, I have updates for him, but that one is actually a national security thing that I will not pull a Mike Waltz on, and we'll talk about off air.
Agreed.
Anyway, he is a Department of Defense employee, so we can talk about who employs him, but not where.
Yep. Yeah. I gotta reach out to him at some point at this. See if he has time to talk, if he's able to do that right now. But anyway, point of my story, going along all over the place here. Point of bringing him up, right, was the guy met from the Star Citizen game community, right? Really nice dude, similar. Just had really good talks with the guy when I first met him. A good bit, and somewhat relatively often, right? He then disappeared from the game for a long time, and then Discord, and he's been gone for nearly 3 years. Right? He's a nice dude, but life happened. That's life happens, right?
Yeah.
And he just messages me saying, hey, hello, let's catch up, and
Right.
he apologized for being gone. And I know I told him on air right now doing the show, so he said enjoy the podcast action. And he named his Facebook. And like, let's connect through there, right? Let's talk
Yeah.
there. Let's, you know, and like that is how I think a lot of people use Facebook now.
Yeah.
It's not the cultural zeitgeist it was
No, it
20
I
years ago.
yeah, I use it for organizing like well
Okay.
messaging you if I can't get access to Discord.
Oh
Um
yeah, that's right
or
there.
for organizing my D&D group because I can't get them all on Discord right now.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the same thing as that. He said I literally just downloaded Discord on my phone tonight, and that's a quote.
Yeah.
But Facebook, people have, I think, just because of legacy at this point, even.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna put stuff up as much anymore. A lot of people, but you still have a Facebook account,
Right.
so you know,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think that kind of speaks volumes to like the quality of service it provides and the fact that it has on because when Facebook first came out, that was like we were stoked to get onto it. Like one because Zynga had games on it, but also
right.
because at that point MySpace had done something similar where it just became impossible to use, and so we had a clean, simple to use interface that allowed us to talk with friends that wasn't chock full of advertisements.
Yep.
Yeah. At this point, I'm saying go bring back MySpace. Let's I can code some profile backgrounds and get some like embedded music. I don't know if you ever. This might be me dating myself, but yeah, MySpace is my shit.
I think our age difference now, but it's not like a crazy age difference at all. We're very close in age, so
we are, but I think it's just like that 2 to 3 year gap where it's like this like the defining periods of technology on either side of it.
yeah. I think that partly it, and some stuff bled later than others, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if I am dating myself here, but I remember going to Blockbuster still, right?
Hmm.
Now I don't have as many memories of Blockbuster as many other people a little older than me, right?
Yeah.
But I still have those memories. But people younger than me, no. You know, I remember a kid asking me what a VHS.
Oof.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Neat. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I always love hearing moves like that. When I see about something
Yeah.
new. Or like when you reference something from like Transformers or Ninja Turtles, and they're like, "What's like?" I haven't noticed this. And I'm like, "Oh, all right, you're not from the '90s."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the early 2000s, like that's a weird thing is. Well, I definitely grew up in the 90s, right?
Sure.
I feel it very strongly, in all honesty,
Hmm.
that a lot of 90s culture, in some ways, not in all ways, obviously, turn up the millennials, things changed a bit for sure.
Yeah.
And some ways, not just a bit, in big ways too. But there were 70 sort of things from the 90s that kind of stayed still in mid 2000s,
Yeah.
especially shows and certain cultural aspects.
Yeah.
I don't think, for me, but my own life, and I think they also hear from others too, feels like around all right, obviously, in one big way, '01 was a massive shift. That was really
Yeah.
because of the attack in New York and everything. But in a few other much smaller ways, um, the rest of like 90s sort of television, I would say, kind of fizzled out by the mid 2000s.
Right.
You know, like a lot of the stuff I grew up watching were all 90s shows, even though it was like, you know, late 90s or early 2000s, like most of the stuff were actually reruns of stuff that were really popular, like the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
But it was still on air a lot. So I still connect with that stuff
Yeah.
to an extent. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's weird. It's something I always think about. That's kind of odd to me.
I get that. Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so Microsoft.
Yes. This comes from Andrew Cunningham at Ars Technica. Microsoft closes a 9-year-old feature request. Open sources Windows subsystem for Linux. Microsoft's Windows subsystems for Linux has become an important tool for developers and power users since it was introduced by a Windows 10 anniversary update back in 2016, giving them access to built-in Linux command line and Linux applications from within Windows. The company has steadily improved WSL, that's the abbreviation for subsystem for Linux, improving performance, making it easier to install and use, and adding features like GPU and audio support. But today, as part of its Build a Developer Conference, Microsoft announced that it would be making almost all of its WSL open source, closing the very first issue that the new WSL project attracted on GitHub in 2016. WSL could never have been what it is today without its community, writes Microsoft senior software engineer Pierre Boulez in the company's blog post. We've seen how much the community has contributed to WSL without access to the source code, and we can't wait to see how WSL will evolve now that the community can make direct code contributions to the project. Only 2 elements of WSL remain closed off for now: an XLCore or IXCore.sys kernel driver used for WSL 1, the initial version of WSL that is still supported though. Your new installs default to 2019's WSL 2. And the p9rdr.sys and p9np.dll files that handle file subsystem redirection from Windows to Linux. In other words, making it so that Windows can easily access the Linux file system. Microsoft didn't close the door on open sourcing those components though, but also didn't say if or when it planned to make them open source. Though WSL uses some of the same technologies as virtual machines, WSL's speed, low research usage, and integration with Windows make it much more seamless to install and use than traditional virtual machines that maintain more separation between the host and guest operating system. Around the release of Windows 11 2021, Microsoft made WSL something that was installed and updated via Microsoft Store rather than something built into the operating system, making it easier to add new features without requiring the potential disruption of full Windows updates, and also possibly making it easier to open the source code without posting source code for other ports of Windows. So essentially all that to say, this is a tool built into Windows that allows you to use programs and operations that have Linux dependencies. So so if you're working on something that needs a Linux backbone, or like working on something that needs a bash code, you can run a Linux system within your Windows system as a subsystem. So it's not like you're using a virtual computer. It's you're literally creating a sub-computer within your main computer. So it runs faster than using a virtual machine. However, it still doesn't give you the full Linux experience. It's more so something that will allow you to add Linux code into something you're working on in Windows. And this is something I included because I think it's something like a weird, interesting open source win for Windows, which normally is not the case because they're constantly locking stuff down. That's one of the reasons why I just recently made the hop to being a full-time Linux user. But so them actually opening up this code and allowing people to work on it directly when it's a Microsoft product, I think is going to be very helpful for potentially making some better apps that are going to be cross-compatible between Microsoft and Linux, because that's one of the main issues that I talked about before. Is like when I first jumped to Linux, like gaming didn't really exist on there, so I went back to Windows. And for some people, like it's things like Photoshop or whatever. So hopefully having this level of cross communication or being able to work that would hopefully allow for people to be able to better create software and tools that can communicate on both systems, so that way stuff that's native on Windows can become native on Linux or vice versa. which is just in general a win for a community on both sides. Kind of a bit of a nerd topic there, but I think it's just kind of neat.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
That's what I don't have any thoughts on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but it's kind of neat.
Yeah. And one things where like it's definitely like it's more impactful for people who are. I'm getting so many Discord notifications right now. It's more impactful for people who are encoding than the general population, but I think this is something to
No.
would be interesting to track for like when software becomes available years down the line, right? Like 2-3 years, like the new software end up getting like the new free and open source software that people end up uploading tools we get.
Fairly, and honestly, I would like to learn coding, so
yeah,
I think I started really trying to learn it. There be people more interesting to me.
Yeah, that's it. The first one I learned was Ruby, which is kind of a fucking nightmare. So I'd recommend doing that one. Although if you do, you can download what's it called? RPG Maker has like fun tools for learning Ruby essentially, but Linux actually has a scripting language called Bash, which is very easy to create your own simple scripts, and then from there take that same sort of logic you learned and go into something like C++. So
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more.
Yes, I think actually just one more will end it after this one.
Yeah, but it's getting kind of late.
Yeah, this one's just kind of a really good OPA. I'm gonna try and mute these notifications real quick because I am dying.
Fair enough. We got to hear them, so.
Okay.
I think I got to hear them.
Stream might be able to hear them.
They may. I can't. So
yeah.
They may be able to hear them. Maybe. As use open source lab eyes sustainable infrastructure upgrades after funding success.
This is actually local to me. This is Oregon State University. From Suvrev Rudra at FOSS News, again, free and open source software news. OSU's open source lab eyes sustainable infrastructure upgrades after funding success. A few days back, and this is from May 14th, reported how Oregon University's, Oregon State, open source lab was facing closure after a funding deficit threatened its existence, making them ask for support from the FOSS community and corporate sponsors. For people who don't know, Oregon State University has one of the largest labs for students and developers to work on open source software and stuff. So it's actually quite well known in the international community. Thankfully, the call for support worked, paving the way for the OSU OSL to look ahead into what the future holds for them. What's happening? Focused on 2 primary objectives. The OSU OSL is looking to build a stable financial backbone that keeps it self-sufficient beyond 2025. They aim to achieve this by pushing for annualized pledges, new avenues for constant revenue stream, and other similar fundraising measures. The OSU OSL is also searching for a new location as their current data center is over 20 years old. Focus on replacing the aging hardware with a few generations old, power-efficient, refurbished server hardware. This would be in line with their sustainable infrastructure strategy. As for location, they'll have a place that can accommodate 13 to 20 racks and is ideally situated between Eugene and Portland in the state of Oregon with a low-cost free hosting solution that keep expenses in check. What's next? With these prerequisites in place, OSU OSL intends to expand their student programs, strengthen their managed services portfolio for open source projects, introduce modern tooling like Kubernetes and Terraform, and encourage more community volunteers to actively contribute. So this is kind of like a cool little news thing because, again, dealing with open source software or free and open source software, as is in the title, it's stuff that's created without asking for money, and even some open source stuff that is presented with as a purchasable product. Which I have no problem with. I think as long as the project is open source and you can see what exactly is running, asking for money for it is great. Absolutely support yourself. but it's hard to compete against tech giants that want to keep their stuff proprietary and will actively seek to harm open source projects or pick from them and steal talent away. And this lab has been instrumental for not only Linux development but also like creating packages that have improved things like OBS and Twitch streaming or audio processors or things like that, or even some audio processors that have moved from Linux to Windows and Mac because they're just very efficiently coded. And so this is kind of a cool feel-good fluff story about how the tech community internationally donated enough money to get them a new facility.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of that one. And they're local to me, so that's kind of neat to the thing to happen.
That is positive.
Yeah.
A nice end to the positive story.
Yeah. It's kind of that same thing where like we talked about earlier about like the responsible thing. Like as much as like people would want or are being told, if you don't like it, just leave. Getting together and doing community action can create positive change, whether it is saving a lab or even potentially affecting political change in our current system. So
100% agree with that.
Yeah. Hopefully together we can. I mean, it's not going to take overnight, but we can, be active and use our voices and our influence and our power to hopefully leave the world better than how we found it.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Okay. Brooke, do you have any ending thoughts for tonight's pod?
Any thoughts? A lot of interesting stories this week. Honestly, I was surprised at what you get based on what's happened the last few weeks. You didn't go into the obvious, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to keep it focused on information technology and tech policy and stuff like that, kind of things that like are more in our wheelhouse. I don't quite want to get into the Pope.
Yeah. The Pope.
Although I am enjoying the memes about
yeah, me too.
The Pope avoiding JD Vance so he doesn't die.
Also, like as you, without getting into the Pope properly, right? I will say this though, like when I heard of the current new Pope, right? I thought it would go way worse. And I'm at least happy that did not happen.
Yeah, I'm the way that he's been speaking. I'm actually so far a fan of his. So we'll see how that goes.
No, like that. Like I remember hearing somewhere, like normally, especially with the Pope, you gotta have a bit of a, it's like politics. You go one way, one for a bit, right? And then you go too far enough, actually, way, you go the opposite way toward the stream, and then vice versa, right? That kind of seen it with Trump and with the the Obama and Trump administrations, debatably Biden and Trump administrations, kind of this jerk reaction to a different administration,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you'd have it with the Pope. And so far, it seems like that's not really what's happening, actually.
Yeah.
So that I'm very happy to see that.
Me too.
But no, very interesting stories today, I think.
Yeah.
And we did our 2 hours, and we will. I have no idea where we're back on, but I'm assuming not this Sunday, right?
Maybe the Sunday. I don't know if I have it. I'll have to check my calendar. But we'll be in touch about whether it's gonna be Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, and also the race stuff, by the way, or to it earlier. I'm not going to be wrapped up with that. I'm not going to be wrapped up with that for the rest of the season now. So
Okay.
I should be a little more available too.
That's good.
So,
And
yeah.
my life is also an issue point, but at least I have some time to work on stuff. So.
Okay. All right, all. You have a wonderful night, stream and
Yes.
chat, and everyone else who wants to watch this whatever time of the world you are watching this or listening to it. Have a good day in that moment.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to say, Tim?
No. Be kind to each other. Check your sources. Check your encryptions. Then if you can get something for free, don't pay for it.
Yeah.
You're gonna know.